1966, and probably would have stayed longer, but he became ill, and of course, died. After that, the principals came. They stayed 6, 7 years, and then they moved on. When my pastor says that West Charlotte is my passion, he's truthful. I love the school. And I said, why I love my school so much? Because there's so much history here. And we have been able to do things that no other school in this city has been able to do. Our school was all black. We didn't use the terminology black then. Our terminology was Negroes. You probably have not even heard of that terminology. Well, Negroes. In 1969, and let me back up, there was another school, Second Ward. Second Ward High School was the first Negro school, opened in 1926. They knew that integration was going to hit in 1970, so they closed that school in 1969. But where Charlotte was still standing.
That one is the mouse.
It was standing not only because they needed somewhere for us to go, because we weren't going to be allowed to go to Miles Park, South Mid, East Mid. We were going to be housed in our neighborhood and in our own school, so to speak. That was perfectly fine with us, because all we wanted was an education. It didn't really matter. So we were happy with that. We had nothing to complain about. The teachers and our parents were the ones that were most concerned that we were not able to get all of the things that the other schools were getting. New books didn't matter to us. It was just a matter of having a book to do what we needed to do, and that's what we did. There was no such thing as cutting class. Never heard of cutting class. You don't cut class, do you?
I thought you said cutting glass.
We cutting class, C-L-A-S-S. We didn't hear of anything like that. One of the main reasons is because of the personal contact that our teachers had with our students. Now, I'm not going to say that we didn't ever make the wrong choices, because sometimes we did. When my daughter found out that I was going to speak to the class, she asked me if I was going to share some of the choices maybe that I made that weren't the right choices. I said, I don't plan to tell them that. and she says, well, I think it would be good, because everybody sometimes makes the wrong choice. So I'll share. I was in 10th grade. And I think this is why she mentioned, because this is a 10th grade class. And my boyfriend was the only one that had a car. But we weren't supposed to get in cars, right? How many of you are familiar with Bojangles on West Trade right at 77? You remember about Bojangles? Okay. Well, that location was a place called Igloo. And they had the best foot-long hot dogs in the world, we thought. So a couple of us said, Uncle, let's go to Igloo. Well, I was always afraid. They said, oh, come on. We'll be back. It's lunch. We'll be back. So I got in the car, and we went to Igloo. and stayed too long. And when we got back, there were 2 teachers and an assistant principal standing on the sidewalk. I was scared to death. When I saw them, I just ducked my head down, and my friend put his foot on the accelerator and went straight past West Charlotte. But the dead end wasn't but 2 blocks up the street. And we stayed there until we thought that they had gone. And sure enough, when we got back, no one was in sight. So he turned in, got out of the car, and Pop Miller stepped from behind the truck and says, "Your dad is already here. And we've called your mother." And when I got up to the office, there stood my dad. He said, "You shall not participate in any extracurricular activities for 1 month. You will go to church and to school." That to me was devastating. So, that choice being the wrong one, and I'm telling you this for a reason now, I never did that anymore because I didn't like the end results. I wanted to participate. I wanted to be able to go to the game, and I wanted to be able to do the other things that the kids were doing at that particular time. The principal called me in and he says, "Now, Miss Haynes, I'm going to assume that you've learned your lesson in reference to going off campus." I said, "I have." That was my experience, and it wasn't good to me. So consequently now, I'm going to class. I'm participating in all of the extracurricular activities that I had chosen to, and no more problems. Now, the teachers are talking to us about, I'm sure they do now, about what do you want to do when you leave West Charlotte? Have you decided where you want to go? Have you decided what you want to do? And they took us one-on-one. Everybody didn't want to go to college, but the majority of them did. So, in 1952 comes my time. And I walked out of West Charlotte and walked into North Carolina College, which is now North Carolina Central University. My father said to me, I could go anywhere really that I wanted to go, as long as I didn't go anywhere near where the Latimer boy was going. He chose Johnson C. Smith University, and I went to Durham. But during those times, they were drafting. They were drafting young men into the military. So the end of his sophomore year, he was drafted. And he did not want to go into the military without his girlfriend's last name being Latimer.
Oh, so cute.
My dad didn't think it was so cute. So, regardless of how he felt, the wedding was planned, and I'll just share this tidbit. Reverend Gibbons said, "Who giveth this young woman to be wedded to this man?" My dad ain't said nothing. So I punched him, and he mumbled, and Reverend Gibbons says, "I will accept that as I do." But it was a good thing. He went into the military, and I finished school. Became a wife, and several years later became a mom. Still loving West Charlotte. I'm going to move ahead a little bit. When my son was in 10th grade, he was able to come to West Charlotte. He was a happy camper. But at the end of that 10th grade year, the zone changed. He was at West Met, had an opportunity to remain there, but he chose to stay at West Met, and now our boundary line was Garringer. But he graduated from West Met. My daughters from Garringer. But my affiliation was still West Charlotte. In 1981, this is an important year, a group of us were in one of our friends' home that had finished West Charlotte, and her mom had passed. And we realized that everybody in that room had finished West Charlotte. And one of the young men said, so why don't we form a national alumni association? The young man was Rudy Torrance, and Mayor says, let's get it together. And each one of us was asked to contact everybody that we knew that had finished West Charlotte. We gave each other 2 months. We would meet, and when we had that particular meeting, that was the first meeting, there was 150 people there, all from West Charlotte. That was the onset of the National Alumni Association, formed only to help the students attending our school. Okay. How many of you are familiar with the Wall of Fame that's in the Omni? That was done by the National Alumni Association. The mural was drawn by a young man who finished West Charlotte, participated in a competition when he was in 10th grade,